Blue Nemesis Chevelle real quick. I got one for you. Building a 454 twin turbo boost engine. Got forged pistons. Got the new Scat crank. We got Viola flat top with a relief valve, pistons with forged H-beam rods. I marked the pistons. Let me go over it real quick. I marked my pistons one by one, and before you, because these are floating, fully floating, so I can assemble them here. Don't need a press to fit in. Just the best way to go. It's a straight race. All right, so they're all oiled up and marked and everything, ready to go in the cylinder. One thing you got to remember to do is when you're doing this is since they're not factory, they're not going to be marked. Most of the time from the factory, they're marked. The rods are marked. The pistons are marked 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, all the way down. And there's a direction, just like they have a direction on these main caps. There's a direction so you know which one goes forward. When you're doing it all by yourself with aftermarket parts, one of the things you got to do is you're going to be mounting your own rods to your own piston. You're going to be determining the orientation of the piston inside the cylinder. Right there, you got a relief valve, which is going to be on my intake for the just a little bit more clearance for the cam, for a bigger cam. So what we do is we get our rods. There's no bearing in it or nothing. Just be careful. And if you take a look, you can see the one side of the rod on this side is it's not dented up, it just has a bunch of oil and stuff on it. But the one side and this side go inside just like that. So the side that's out go against the crankshaft, and the two sides that are a little bit thinner that you can see goes rod on rod. And the big block, the cylinders are not lined up perfect on either engine. They're offset because the rod has to be offset because of the crank and the rod journal. So whenever you're going to do these, I do it one by one. I'll start with like number one. First, I'll mark all my pistons. All these pistons have marks on the top of them from cylinders because I do the orientation of the piston inside the cylinder. With the motor flipped over, my relief valve on these pistons are intake side. And you take your piston and put them all in the cylinder facing up, and then you make sure that your relief valves all on the same size. You mark all your pistons first. Well, this is the way I do it. I mark all the pistons first. Once I get all the pistons marked, I know which piston go in which cylinder. Then I go with my rods. I orientate my rods on the pistons to make sure they're all lined up, and then I mark each rod and piston as a combo. So I got number 1, and we're going to number 2. Then we'll go all the way down to 8 and get them all set up to where they go in. Once that is taking place, then I go ahead, and these pistons require pin locks, spiral locks, or wish I could find a guy where I can get some piston buttons, but nevertheless, spiral locks, and that's how you lock that rod on that pin for that piston. Now all the pistons are weighed, all the rods are weighed, everything is balanced. So we're to the point right now where all I got to do is assemble everything and put it inside the engine. So we're gonna go systematically, one by one, matching all the number 1s with the number 2s and all this stuff, and marking all the rods. Once I put it inside the engine, they're all gonna line up perfectly. Do a test run, and then you put your locking pins on to make sure you got everything orientated right inside the motor. After that, well, during this whole process, you gotta use some engine lube. I use just regular engine lube, assembly lube, and as you go along, you just lube up everything. Right now, for my test marking, the only thing you gotta do is be really, really careful with the journals on that crankshaft, since there's no bearings in them. Don't bang it around and nick it or nothing like that. Just lightly test fit it. If you want, for more safety, you can go ahead and put the bearings on there. Then you just got to be careful taking the rods on and off, not to drop a bearing and get it dirty or anything. So for me, it's easier for me to do it without the bearings on, so I got to chance getting them dirty or anything, or contaminate them, then have to clean them again. Do a quick mock-up. Just be careful with the rod journal and mock it all up, mark them all, and then when it's time to reassemble, all I got to do is go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, just drop them all in there, they're ready to go. Now with these pistons and these rods, you can notice the quality. The quality is way better than the factory quality. It's just, everything is machined better. It's just way better quality. So the smoother the transaction and the less resistance that's inside the engine, the more power. But it's not really the more power, it's the less strain you put on that engine to make amount of power. When it's balanced correctly, there's less strain on the engine, there's less vibrations, there's less things that's going against the longevity of the engine. So that's what you really want. You want an engine that's balanced. You want an engine that has parts in it that are going to run so smooth, it's just going to last longer and make a lot of power. All right, so we'll be back.